In 2015, Time magazine called her one of the 100 most influential people on the planet. Forbes put her on the cover. Fortune called her the next Steve Jobs. She had raised over $700 million. She was worth $9 billion. She was 31 years old, and every single word she had ever said about her company was a lie. Her name was Elizabeth Holmes, and what she did to investors, to doctors, to patients who trusted her with their lives is the greatest fraud Silicon Valley has ever seen. This is her full story. Elizabeth Ann Holmes was born on February 3, 1984, in Washington, D.C. She was ambitious from the start. As a child, she told her father she wanted to be a billionaire, not a scientist, not a doctor, a billionaire. She was obsessed with Steve Jobs. She read every book about him. She studied every interview. She enrolled at Stanford University in 2002 to study chemical engineering. But in her very first year, she had an idea. What if blood tests didn't require needles? What if a single drop of blood from a fingertip could diagnose hundreds of diseases instantly? She brought the idea to one of her Stanford professors, a medical expert named Phyllis Gardner. Gardner told her clearly, "It's impossible. The technology doesn't exist. The science doesn't support it." Holmes nodded, smiled, and ignored everything Gardner said. In 2003, at just 19 years old, she dropped out of Stanford. She took the money her parents had saved for her education and founded a company called Theranos. The name was a mix of two words, therapy and diagnosis. The mission, she said, was to democratize healthcare, to save lives, to change everything. It was a beautiful story. The only problem was, she had no idea how to actually build it. What Elizabeth Holmes lacked in scientific knowledge, she more than made up for in something else entirely. The ability to make people believe. She started wearing only black turtlenecks, just like Steve Jobs. She deepened her voice artificially, dropping it an entire octave lower than her natural tone. She maintained intense, unblinking eye contact in every meeting. She spoke slowly, deliberately, like every word carried the weight of history, and people fell for it completely. By 2004, she had raised $6 million in funding. By 2010, $92 million. She built a board of directors that read like a who's who of American power. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State. George Shultz, former Secretary of State. James Mattis, future Secretary of Defense. The families of Betsy DeVos and the Waltons of Walmart. Generals, politicians, billionaires, all sitting in her boardroom, all believing every word she said. In 2013, Theranos partnered with Walgreens. Soon, Theranos blood testing centers would be available in over 40 stores across America. Patients walked in, gave a tiny drop of blood from their finger, and received results within hours. It was revolutionary. It was historic. And none of it worked. Inside Theranos, things looked very different from the outside. The machine at the heart of everything, called the Edison, was supposed to run hundreds of blood tests from a single finger prick. It couldn't. Not even close. The Edison could only run a small handful of tests reliably. For everything else, Theranos was secretly using standard machines from competitors, the same machines they publicly claimed to be replacing. And the results those machines were producing They were wrong. Dangerously wrong. Patients were being told they had HIV when they didn't. Patients were being told they had cancer when they didn't. Patients were being told their medication levels were dangerously high, causing them to change or stop treatments they actually needed. Real people, real diagnoses, real consequences. Inside the company, employees who raised concerns were fired. Holmes and her partner Sunny Balwani, who was also secretly her boyfriend, ran Theranos like a cult. Security cameras everywhere. Employees forbidden from talking to each other across departments. Anyone who asked questions was shown the door. And all the while, Holmes kept smiling at cameras, kept raising money, kept telling the world she was saving lives. In 2015, a journalist named John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal started receiving strange tips. Former employees, scientists, people who had seen things inside Theranos they couldn't unsee. Carreyrou started making calls. Holmes fought back immediately. She hired an army of lawyers. She personally called the editors of the Wall Street Journal trying to kill the story. She sent letters. She made threats. She told anyone who would listen that Carreyrou was a liar, that Theranos was being attacked by people who wanted to destroy innovation. On October 15th, 2015, the Wall Street Journal published the story anyway. The headline asked a simple question. Had Theranos been misleading investors and the public about its technology? The world stopped. Holmes went on TV immediately. She appeared on CNBC. She called the story factually and fundamentally wrong. She kept smiling. She kept the voice low and steady. But this time, it didn't work. Regulators from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services launched an investigation. What they found inside Theranos' lab was described as a threat to patient safety. In 2016, they banned Holmes from operating any laboratory for 2 years. And then the investor started calling. Rupert Murdoch, who had personally invested $125 million in Theranos, sold his shares back for $1. $1. Walgreens terminated its partnership. Safeway canceled its $350 million deal. In June 2016, Forbes revised Holmes' net worth from $9 billion to zero. In 2018, the SEC charged her with massive fraud. A federal grand jury indicted her on 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy. The woman who had promised to change medicine forever was now facing over 20 years in prison. The trial of Elizabeth Holmes began in 2021. It was unlike anything Silicon Valley had ever seen. Holmes arrived at court every day looking calm, composed, carrying her infant son. Her defense strategy was extraordinary. She claimed she was a victim. She said Sunny Balwani, her partner, her co-founder, her secret boyfriend, had abused her, controlled what she ate, what she wore, who she could speak to. She said she genuinely believed in Theranos, that she hadn't knowingly lied, that she was just wrong. Prosecutors painted a different picture. They showed email after email where Holmes was warned the technology didn't work. Report after report from her own scientists telling her the results were inaccurate, and email after email of Holmes telling investors the opposite. On January 3rd, 2022, the jury came back. Guilty. 4 counts of criminal fraud. On November 18th, 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. She reported to federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, on May 30th, 2023. She was 39 years old. The investors lost hundreds of millions of dollars, but they were wealthy people who took calculated risks. The people who paid the real price were the patients. Ordinary men and women who walked into a Walgreens, gave a drop of blood, and trusted the result with their health decisions. The woman who was told she might have cancer and spent weeks in terror before a real test proved it false. The man told his HIV medication was dangerously high, who adjusted his dose based on a number that was simply wrong. These people have no names in the headlines. They received no $452 million restitution. They got nothing. Holmes and Balwani were ordered to repay investors. Nobody was ordered to repay the patients, because their suffering had no price tag the law could calculate. Elizabeth Holmes built an empire on a single idea: that if you speak with enough confidence, people will believe anything. She was right. For over a decade, she fooled billionaires. She fooled generals. She fooled doctors. She fooled the world's most respected magazines. And while she was doing it, real people received diagnoses that weren't real. Real lives were disrupted by results that were simply wrong. In the end, the truth that one reporter refused to let go of was worth more than $9 billion. Subscribe to Dark Verdict for a new documentary every week, and leave a comment. Do you think 11 years was enough? 'Cause I'm not sure it was.